There's a lot of similarities right now if you think about it. And we got Zach Berman from Philly here. We'll bring Zach in. Zach, where the Cleveland sports teams are kind of like the poor man Philadelphia sports teams right now. Think about this. The Phillies, they got tossed from the playoffs yesterday. They lost to their rival.
Poor Steve.
Right? And obviously the Philly-Met rivalry is much bigger than the Tigers-Guardians rivalry. Mets and Philly fans hate each other. And the Phillies got booted out, and the Guardians may get booted out when they didn't expect it. Phillies didn't expect to get booted out.
We ain't booted out yet.
Well, we haven't been booted out. Hopefully not. The Eagles have, in the last 2 years, gone from the darlings of the NFL to where they're a disaster. Their coach with his raccoon eyes, everybody wants him fired. The Browns, Kevin Stefanski's fallen off a cliff here. But like the Phillies are better roster than the Guardians. The Eagles have been more accomplished than the Browns. So we're like the poor man version. And even in basketball, right? The Sixers, really good, but they're a fraud. They're a fraudulent team. They're not winning anything. And the Cavs are like the Sixers now. We're good, but we're a fraudulent team too.
God.
We're a poor man's Philly right now. Our teams are like kind of similar, not quite as good.
Dang, Zach, tell him he's crazy.
Am I right, Zach? What do you think? You buying that?
Not totally, but I see some of your similarities. Look, I mean, as far as the baseball, I get it, but there are 26 teams that didn't make the postseason, right? So I think getting to this point, I hear what you're saying. As far as the Eagles and Browns, they're in different spots. I know in Philly, obviously, there's a lot of distress about the head coach. I think in Cleveland, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot more of it's directed toward the quarterback right now.
Sure.
But I would also say it's 4 weeks into the season. The Eagles are 2-2, and they didn't have A.J. Brown for 3 of those games, and A.J. Brown makes a big difference. But look, if I'll put it this way, where I would agree with you is that if the Eagles lose on Sunday to the Browns, then I don't know what type of city I'll be waking up in Monday morning.
That's messed up. That they think that badly of it. We did that bad that we can cause a dumpster fire.
This is the Northeast. It's different. Obviously, I'm originally from New York. I worked in New York. I actually worked for a week in Philly. I did a week of sports talk with Howard Eskin, who was a big Philly sports talk guy, or he was. He's kind of awesome.
1 week was enough for you?
1 week, I was done. Howard Eskin was the first person I ever worked with that was on his phone the whole time during the show. Now everybody does it. But in those days, it was probably like 2000, I don't know, 8, 9, whatever. Like, nobody was on their phone in those days.
I mean, he must have had a crazy cell phone package. Back then, I still had nights and weekends.
I had
high
minutes.
roller
Yeah, he
now.
had minutes.
But anyway, like the Northeast, I know, I grew up as that kind of fan. And that's why fans here had to adjust to me because I'm so in your face. And that's what it is. If you're Boston, Philly, New York, in your face, and they have no patience. So it doesn't matter even the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say my statement had less to do with the Browns, who I actually think have a real talented team. They need to figure out the quarterback situation, and it has more to do, frankly, with the fact that the Eagles are coming off a bye.
Yeah.
That they're healthier than they were. You know, when the Eagles played against Tampa, when everyone last saw them, they were playing without A.J. Brown, Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith. Those are 3 of the 5 best players in the team.
Yep.
I think it certainly looks like all 3 are going to be back. If and when they play, it just makes a material difference for what you see from the Eagles.
Zach, is Jalen Hurts the guy? Do you think he's the guy, like, that they got it right paying him and all of those things? Or do you think that he's overrated? Be honest.
Well, I thought the way he played in 2022 was as well as it was up there for MVP-like performance. I thought he took a step back here. I think he's taken another step back this year. If he can play the way he did in 2022, then yeah, he's absolutely the guy. The way he's playing now, it's not bad, but he's turned the ball over too much, and that's really holding them back. But I think that I've seen enough of Jalen at the high water mark to say that yes, he is the guy. But what I haven't seen enough from Jalen is consistency. And in particular, in the past, I would say if you go back to the backstretch of last year. So really, the past 12 to 14 games, he has not been what the Eagles need him to be.
Well, I'm going to ask you a broader, 50,000 feet question. I mean, we talk about all the time, and I get annoyed with it when we talk about how much these guys make, and I try to explain it. This is simple economics. If you got 30 guys 32 guys in the whole universe that do what quarterbacks do, they're a rare commodity. They will get paid based on whether or not they're a starter. Even a low-tier guy, the Geno Smiths are getting $25-30 million. But you look at a lot of people, we talk about 230 with Deshaun Watson, but you go down the list of these quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, boatload of money. Trevor Lawrence, boatload of money. Jalen Hurts, a lot of money. Kyler Murray, a lot of money. Is it one of those things where the money is never going to equal what the production is anymore? Or is it just going to be like, hey, a couple guys at the top are going to give you that top production like we're used to, and you're going to have to be cool with 250 yards here or there because it ain't coming back?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. I think it's frankly it's the going rate for a franchise quarterback. Now you might have teams that look at it and say you're better off kind of cycling through quarterbacks rather than paying someone top of the league money. My view is if you think you have one of them, you do whatever you can to keep them. And in the case of Jalen Hurts, I mean, he went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, right? Mm-hmm. So coming off that game, I don't know how you don't pay that guy. You want that player for the next 8 to 10 years in your franchise. But you brought up Trevor Lawrence. You can go on down the list. It's really it's about sustained success. It's about consistency. So you pay them based on what they're capable, but they earn it based on what they do each week. And I think that's the issue for some of the quarterbacks right now is you're not seeing the consistency that these teams need.
Zach, what was your thoughts on Hassan Reddick? Was it the right move letting him go and get in? I think they got Bryce Huff. I think is the new guy they got to replace him. Am I right?
Yeah. So now it's the dollars are different there, right? I mean, I said at the time, Hassan Reddick was an elite pass rusher. You built your offensive game plans around knowing where number 7 was on the field. I don't think they should have let him go. But the thing is, and you've seen this with the Jets right now, Hassan Reddick wants to be paid like a top 5 edge rusher. He wants to be paid in the high 20s, let's say, right? So the Eagles signed Bryce Huff for $17 million a year, and it's a considerable difference between what they would have had to pay Hassan Reddick and what they paid Bryce Huff. Now that said, they're getting a considerable difference in performance between what they got from Hassan Reddick and what they're getting now from Bryce Huff. They looked at Bryce Huff as an ascending player, someone who had double-digit sacks last year with the Jets, but he hasn't done it through 4 games here, and that's really the major problem for the Eagles right now, in my opinion, is the lack of a pass rush.
Yeah, just in general, Zach. I mean, we talk about Jalen Hurts play declining over the last year. Same thing with the defense, right? 2 years ago when they went to the Super Bowl, that pass rush was the talk of the sport. And what has happened? I mean, I know there's been some changes, but I remember even going into last year, it was like they got another one in the draft, and
they had every defensive lineman from Georgia,
right? And now, they've kind of disappeared. Is there hope of getting that back?
Yeah. So there's 2 things I would look at. First off, personnel. You are right. I mean, that team then had Hassan Reddick. They had Javon Hargrave. Josh Sweat was more productive then. They had Fletcher Cox, one of the best players of the past 15, 20 years. But then I think another big factor is game flow. Is the Eagles were playing with leads, and in second halves of games, the other team was one-dimensional, and the Eagles could pin their ears back. The Eagles are the only team in the NFL that hasn't scored a first quarter point this year, right? So when you're playing from behind, it's going to affect how well you quarterback. When the Eagles are at their best, they're building early leads. They're getting after you with the pass rushers. I was going to say D-line, but the defensive front's a little different now than it was in the past. But they can get at you with your pass rushers. But also, to be fair, the players they have are not either. I think part of this is a personnel issue in addition to a game flow issue.
Zach, when you look at your secondary, obviously, guys are getting up there in age. Big Play Slay is getting older. You went and drafted Cooper DeJean. You got the guy Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, Quinyon Mitchell. Yep.
Yeah. How are you liking all of these new pieces in the secondary? And when you look at, this Browns receiving core with Judy, Amari, and Elijah Moore, and with Njoku coming back, how do you think that that matchup plays out?
Yeah, that's a good point there. I like the way this secondary's developed. I was curious to see how Quinyon Mitchell would look. He was the top cornerback taken in the draft, right? So clearly the Eagles liked him, but there's a jump coming from Toledo to the NFL, and he's handled that exceedingly well. I mean, he's been a bright spot on this defense. You can see why they were so high on him. Then you mentioned Cooper DeJean. He was banged up during training camp. He's getting healthier now. It wouldn't surprise me if he starts in the slot for the first time on Sunday. And then they have some, they paid decent money to C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They need C.J. to play better, or I should say play more consistent. But they have youth and they have talent back there in addition to Slay. The Browns receivers, I think they're better than they've played. You have to look at the quarterback. You have to look at the O-line. But I'm real curious about the Njoku matchup because, look, the Eagles safeties, the Eagles linebackers are still a bit of a question mark. And we saw last year, particularly with Flacco, but we saw last year Njoku can hurt you. So now that he's healthy, I'm curious to see how that matchup looks.
Well, the Browns can't complete any first downs on third down, so I don't know. Maybe Njoku will help with that. We shall see. Dak, what's your prediction for the game?
Yeah, I think the Eagles are 9.5-point favorites. Is that right?
That's
they're big favorites. So I have the Eagles winning this game because A.J. Brown's going to be back, Lane Johnson's going to be back, and they're a much better team when those guys are healthy. So I think they're going to be able to score more points. Now, that said, I covered Jim Schwartz when he led the Eagles to a Super Bowl. I have a lot of respect for what Jim Schwartz does defensively. I saw last year the Browns make it work with a number of different quarterbacks. If Deshaun Watson gets hot, I think the Browns can upset the Eagles. But based on Deshaun has played and based on the players the Eagles are getting back, I'm going with the Eagles.
So I think Zach is just patronizing.
So you're saying if the Browns win, Sirianni's fired?
Oh.
I'm not saying he's fired, but I'm saying that the talk radio the next morning will be asking for him to be fired. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Look, I'll put it this way. Now that the Phillies lost, there's even more of a spotlight on the Eagles. They need to turn this around quickly.
Yeah. Thanks, Zach. We appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. Yes,
absolutely. Thank you, guys.